Welcome to some API exploitation here. This is the first video, hands-on video, I should say, in this series. We're going to be creating an API. I'll show you just how simple it is to do that using Python Flask, particularly Flask RESTful, which is a extension of Flask to help you really create RESTful APIs really quickly and easily. And this will be an essential first step before we go into demonstrating some of those top 10 API vulnerabilities that we checked out in one of the previous videos. Check that out if you haven't already, most definitely. So yeah, let's get right into it. Hey, what's up guys? This is Ryan from elevatecyber. I'm starting from scratch here. As you see, I have this API folder here, nothing in there at the moment. And from here, I'm going to show you just how quick and easily we can create an API in Python. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a couple files, right? The first one I'm going to create is going to just be called api.py. And then the other one will be data.json. We'll be using an external JSON file. Now, in a real world scenario, you probably have a database as well. And what it would be doing is getting that data from the database in JSON format. And then you would deserialize that into an object that Python can use, right? So there's going to be some deserializing going on in this video. We're going to use the JSON module for that, as you'll see. Now, the first thing that I want to do is get my imports here. So obviously we're using Flask. So we'll say from Flask, import Flask. Now, the thing is, if you don't have this already, what you're going to need to do is do a pip install Flask. But in this case, as you can see here, I already have Flask installed. Oops. Well, that should still, let's see here. Maybe it will be with a capital F. Yeah. So you probably have to do pip install Flask with a capital F there. But I already installed Flask as well as this Flask RESTful. So I installed that in the same way. Might not be case sensitive now that I think about it. I think I had it lowercase. I think it's smart enough to know. So you should be able to say pip install Flask, whatever case, and it should work fine, I think. So we'll import that first, and then we're going to also need to import the Flask RESTful, right? And particularly from that, we want to import both resource and API. So we'll grab those two. And like I said, we're going to be doing some deserialization, so we'll use JSON for that. So those are all our imports out of the way. And the first thing we need to do is, this is pretty much the format you need to do when creating your Flask RESTful applications. You want to define app, you want to define API. So for app, we'll say Flask, the parameter dunder name dunder, and then API app. So with that out of the way, we can create our class, which, let's see, what should we call this class? Let's call it, because we're basically only going to need one class here. So we'll just call it hello. Pass in resource as the parameter. And in here, we can define our methods, which are going to correspond to the HTTP methods. So get, post, put, delete, whichever ones we want to use. For the case of this demo, we only need to support get. But I'll just show you first how this works before we get into the actual logic of the code. We could return something. So say we wanted to return like hello world as JSON. We can just write that in the JSON format here. So we could say to return hello world in as JSON, pretty much JSON format. And what we would see, and I guess the thing we have to do as well is we have to use the API. We have to take this, right, and we need to add a resource. So we'll say add resource and the hello class, and we are going to bind that to the root directory, right? So if we have that, and we'll say if this is run as a script, basically, if dunder name dunder equals dunder main dunder, or if name equals main, as you can more easily say it, right? If that's the case, then we'll do an app.run, which this is a Flask thing here. It's app.run, as was the add resource. That's also a Flask thing. So, and we'll say, let's turn on debug mode for now. Debug equals true. And if I run this, what you should see is that, so we do Python API.py, Python 3 rather, in my case here. This is active. If we go here, let's make a curl request to it. So we'll open this up here. Let's say we do curl. Then we'll see we made a get request to it, and we got that JSON back, hello world. Now, like I said, these here, they map to the HTTP verb, so this was a get request. What would happen if we tried a post request, right? What if we said, hey, send it as a post? In that case, we didn't define a method to handle post requests, so it's going to say, it's going to give this error message, the method is not allowed for the requested URL. So yeah, we get that back if we try that. Now, if we wanted to support the post method, all we need to do is define post. Take an input of self, and we'll just say, we'll return the JSON post world, I guess. Just for this is all just for demonstration purposes, so you guys can see how this works. So what we can do here is make that post request, and I might need to restart this. Let's see. We'll try to make that again. Okay, yeah. I just need to restart the server was all. But now we see post world when we do the post request. If we do a get request, then we see this first one up here, right? So that's how that works. We don't need the post, so I'll get rid of it for now. What we do need, though, is to actually add some logic here. So we have this JSON. First of all, let's populate our data, right? We have this JSON file here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to placeholder JSON, placeholder.json, or JSON placeholder rather, online, and grab some placeholder JSON that we can use. I'm going to copy paste that in here. And now we got all this JSON here, which honestly is a ton. So if I save that, now we have that, but we're going to need to pull it in and serialize and deserialize, all that stuff, right? So we have our imports for that. All we need to do is code it up here. So we're going to say f equals open, and we're going to open data.json, which is the file that we created here with our JSON. And then we're going to create a variable called data, and we'll do a json.load. So now load the JSON. And to actually be able to deserialize this into something Python can use, we'll do a json.dumps. So instead of returning our hard-coded JSON here right in the script itself, we're going to return json.dumps data. So doing that, if we make the request, this get request, we'll see all of our JSON. Of course, not pretty printed or anything like that. If we're doing this programmatically with Python, it'd be really easy to do it here. But yeah, this is basically all we need to have we basically have a working API at this point. What we could do is where we add resources, we could add, I don't know, different resources, for example. So maybe we have multiple different JSON files for users, or maybe on a database, we have a users table, we have a recommendations table, I don't know, account information, account table or something, right? We have all these different tables, right? Or in this case, we could have multiple different JSON files, and then we could add different endpoints, right? So we could have like a /users. We could have a we could have, say we had another class here. So this could be like we could call this class user, and maybe this file, we can just rename it. Let's say, instead of data.json, let's say it's called users.json. So we can load in that. And then we could have, let's say we had another one. Say we had the class user, and then we had a class called maybe account. So account, making in resource here, and the get request is what it would take. And then let's create account.json. And let's just say, we'll just hard code some of this here. We'll say that it has a few accounts. So the account info, it'll have an ID of, I don't know, some numbers. Wait a minute, let me reference this here real quick. All right, so in this case, it'll look something like this. And then let's see, what are some other parameters we can use here. It'll have an ID, and it'll have maybe like an address. Etc. Right? Might have some stuff like that. So that'll be account.json, or maybe we'll call it accounts. Let's say it would have multiple. Ideally, it would have multiple, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. You get the idea. This is for demonstration purposes here, really. So some of this stuff got deleted. All right, so if we wanted to do something like that, when we keep building this out, we can say we'll open accounts.json, and the data will be json.load f, and we'll then return json.dumps data, right? And now we got to add the resource here, though, right? So this no longer exists, so let's update this. So if they make a request to /users, it'll run the user class. And if they make a request to, it'll run the account class if they make a request to /account, accounts, I guess we'll say. There we go. So now we have multiple endpoints here. So we save that. And we run the server once again. What we should be able to see here is, making requests to here shouldn't do anything because now there is no endpoint for just the root. So we'll see an error here, 404. So we need to make a request to either users to get the user information or accounts. And that'll give us the other JSON, right? So simple as that, really. Now, we might have messed something up with the formatting a little bit. We see all these slashes here. We probably could have done that better, but I just kind of hard-coded some JSON here. But since this is just a demo, I'm not going to worry about fixing the formatting on that too much right now. But another thing I wanted to demonstrate is that right now, as you see, we run this. This is only on our local host. Well, what if we wanted to be able to interact with this on, like, say, our Kali box, another machine on the network, right? Because that's a better lab scenario, right? Well, we can definitely do that. So I'm going to start up my Kali box really quick here. And the way we're going to demonstrate this is, let's see here. By default, when we run it like this, it will run on localhost, but we want to bind it to all interfaces. So I don't know that I know how to do that off the top of my head, but I know it's very simple. Google. It's something with the app.run, I believe. Flask, all interfaces. Here we go. Yep. So in the app.run here, I can probably turn off debug for now. In the app.run, you just got to say host equals 0.0.0.0. And now what we should see is that when we run this, it should run on, yep, it runs on this here, the IP address. So coming into here, we will try and make a request on our Kali box to it, see if we can hit it and make the request, right? So let me make sure that I have that copied first of all. And we'll go from there. I don't know why this is being difficult here with that, clicking over, but so we can do the same thing, right? So we could do curl to /users, and we get all that, yep. And curl to accounts, and we get that. So, yep, that is just showing you guys how it works across the network. So now we have our API that we can attack from any box we choose. And in the coming videos, we're going to be adding a lot more functionality to the API, like supporting tokens. Right now, of course, this is it doesn't require any authentication. We're going to be setting up weak authentication and cracking it and hacking into it, right? And just demonstrating a number of those vulnerabilities that we showcased. We looked at a little bit on the previous video with the OWASP top 10 API vulnerabilities. So if that sounds interesting, definitely stay tuned, hit the subscribe button and like as well. And I'll see you guys over in the videos on screen now if you're just really eager to get into more technical content on Python, things like that. And yeah, thanks for watching.